is Rodrigo with Biotrinetics Laboratory, and we have a very special guest with us today. We have Jennifer Cluth, who is the consultant at New Leaf Wellness Clinic in North Liberty, Iowa. How are you,
Hi,
Jennifer?
how are you?
Excellent, excellent. We're so thrilled to have you today, and it's just a great opportunity for you and I to chat about some of the benefits of food sensitivity testing, some of the things that you may have heard from patients, the benefits, the symptoms, any kind of misconceptions or questions that you've gotten. So please share with us, what are some of the questions that you do hear a lot of from patients?
I would say the most recent one I've been hearing is about healthy food choices. So when I show them the inserts, which I have right here because I always have it on my desk, for the food sensitivities, is that there's a lot of healthy options on here that they don't necessarily think when they think about being sensitive to something or something reacting in their bodies. And so that kind of clicked off some thoughts in my head about, wow, people that are thinking about what's going on in their bodies that think they're already healthy are not even thinking about doing this. And they're the ones that could benefit the most in some situations.
Yeah, and it's such a great point. I mean, we do hear that a lot as well. Patients are surprised that we may be testing for some foods that are healthy, and in some cases, many patients do react to foods that we view as healthy. And it's important to realize that for our food sensitivity test, we're looking at reactivity between a patient's immune system and the foods they're eating. So how a lot of people might think, oh well, what benefit is testing my immune system for that? The benefits are that most 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So when things from the outside world are coming into our body, and foods being predominantly the most abundant source of that, our gut is a line of defense for fending off anything that shouldn't be in our system. So that is why 70% of our immune cells are going to be all along our intestinal tract. So when we talk about healthy foods, we're not talking about the nutritional value that a food can provide. For example, carrots. You and I were talking about this a little earlier.
Yeah,
Somebody
carrots.
might react to carrots. Well, carrots are really good nutritionally for you. All the benefits, all the nutrition that carrots can give you. We don't go into that. We're just looking to see how is your specific body reacting to carrots. So meaning, is your immune system being activated by when you eat a healthy food, meaning a food that is going to give you good nutritional value, but is your immune system being activated by that food?
Right.
And that's our focus of our food sensitivity test. You have to keep in mind that inflammation is kind of the culprit for disease. So when we look at patients who are in a disease state and they need help with their health, there's a lot of inflammation going on. And a lot of that inflammation could be stemming from the foods they're eating. And even if it's not stemming from the foods they're eating, if you take a look at what that patient is eating, and some of those foods may be triggering their immune system, and you remove those foods, their overall systemic inflammation is going to go down, and they're going to see and experience a significant improvement in those symptoms that they're having. So that's why when we look at foods on our food sensitivity test, we're not debating that it's not a healthy food for you nutritionally.
Right.
We're just saying right now at this time, your immune system's being activated by something that could be a healthy food, like a carrot,
And
like carrots.
that's so great to explain it that way because, when they were saying it to me, I'm thinking the same thing. Yeah. But when you say your immune system and you're having a response versus it has nothing to do with the health of the food you're eating,
Yep.
that makes
And
so much sense.
And another misconception is that a sensitivity can change. So when we identify food as reactive, and let's say somebody reacts to carrots and we say you should stay away from carrots, it's not forever. As a matter of fact, part of the program for that patient is going to be to reintroduce carrots after a certain period of elimination. Now, how long they eliminate
I was
that
gonna say,
food?
how long is that typically? Because I did get asked that just this morning, was talking about, okay, so that's something that I've noticed patients have a hard time clicking, and me too, because I'm not familiar, but clicking off in that it's not an allergy, it's a sensitivity. So it's not just forever. So I think people tend to steer away from even having the test because they think it's never again. Whatever it is, I'm never going to be able to eat it again. It's gone forever. Kiss it goodbye. is that the sensitivity is different.
Absolutely. And that's another great point, that that is the difference between an allergy and sensitivity. When you have an allergy to something, yes, that is your immune system being activated by that allergen. But most of the times, well, it follows a different pathway, a different antibody. And most of the times, you do have to stay away from that allergen, whether it's a food or whatever it may be. You have to stay away from that probably for the rest of your life. When it comes to a sensitivity, that's not the case. You can eliminate it for some time. The memory of the antibodies that we test for, on average, to be safe, we like to say 4 to 6 months is their memory. So if you avoid a food and completely eliminate it for 4 to 6 months, you will see your antibody levels naturally fall. And then you do a reintroduction, and you have to do that methodically to see if your immune system is still going to be activated by it. So that's where the guidance between biogenetics and New Leaf Wellness for the patients really comes in, is we want to make sure that they're doing everything, in methodically in the program.
What
Um,
does that mean? So what does that mean, like with the 3 months of counseling they get? How does that look? Like it's right from the beginning. Like what is kind of their process?
Yeah, so that's a great point. And we like to go over results with patients to kind of explain, and that's where on the first consultations, we like to educate the patients on the differences between allergies and sensitivities. We let them know this isn't forever. We guide them on the things that they should eliminate based on the results. They need any help with like substitutions, recipes, and everything. We're here for them for that. We do that all
That's
the
so
time for
awesome.
patients. In conjunction with the New Leaf providers, it really creates that perfect partnership where we can help those patients get through it as best as possible. It's funny you mentioned 3 months. We used to kind of say that about 3 months of consultations. Really, in reality, it's probably about 4 to 6. We don't
Oh, wow.
ever cut anyone off. We really want to get them through point A to Z, the whole process, even the reintroduction. So
That's so awesome, Rodrigo. That is just so awesome. And it makes us feel so confident to be able to tell people like you're well taken care of here.
yeah, and it really, when if anybody out there who has ever tried to follow a food sensitivity result or tried any kind of elimination diet, the real work comes in when you get your results and then you start trying to incorporate those changes. So patients really do need all the support they can get. I know I did when I
Yeah.
went through it. I needed help with that. I needed help with recipes for breakfast when I had to eliminate eggs out of my diet completely. Now, again, remember it's temporary. It's only for a short period in the big picture of things. Once you eliminate those foods, you go through the reintroduction phase. Many times you're able to go back to eating those foods without having it cause an issue.
Yes, and there's one woman in particular, she ended up bringing her boyfriend in months later. So this has almost been a year ago.
Okay.
Um, I mean, she was miserable when she came in. She was just like my stomach and all these things keep happening. She was like, if there's allergies in her environment, like she didn't know what was going on. And so she did the food sensitivity. And the next time I saw her, she had more color in her cheeks, and it wasn't that long, but she wasn't happy because she'd had to eliminate all this stuff, So I came in with my personality, how's it going? You look great. You got this color, and she's like, it was dairy, it was gluten, it was coconut, and coconuts and a lot of replacements for the dairy. And, she was just not at that moment of, she was not feeling the love. And so now I'm not kidding. She looks like an entirely different person. I mean, the color, she dropped a ton of weight. I mean, she just happened that, I'm not saying everybody does that, but she just looks like a different person. And the only thing she did was food sensitivity, did that, and vitamin shots. It just it just a completely different transformation, to the point where then down the line she said, brought her boyfriend in here. And that first week, I don't think she would have told anybody to do this. She was like, but it was worth it. And she has a completely different life and feelings. And she just looks like she glows. She looks like a different person.
It's amazing how much gut health really impacts how we feel. I have experienced the same thing, increase in energy, my skin issues cleared up, my gut health was a million times better. But more importantly, and I don't know that there's like a term for this, I felt how I felt when I was younger. I felt
Oh,
I just felt more energy. I felt better drive, better mindset, anxiety like decreased. My sleep quality improved. It's actually kind of amazing how strong our immune systems are and how effective they are. We just got to
Sure.
make sure that they're functioning in the right way for the right things. And the foods we eat shouldn't be activating our immune system. So it's really important to identify that. And unless you get the test, it's going to be virtually impossible to identify those things on your own. And
Right.
another thing, when you hear patients say that they've had a food sensitivity test in the past, or, I hear it all the time where I talk to somebody and they say, oh, I did this test or that test years ago. I'm sensitive to gluten or dairy. My first thing is, well, you were sensitive to gluten or dairy. You don't know if you still are.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Remember, it's about 6 months for that memory of the antibody. So if you did any, interventions and changes into your diet and lifestyle, you may be okay with that. If you did any kind of gut protocol to heal the lining of the gut, to decrease candida, which we also, in conjunction with New Leaf, help your patients do some of those protocols that some of those patients that need it. If you do any of that, your sensitivities are going to change as well, meaning you're probably going to decrease a lot of your sensitivities and you may not be reactive to that anymore. So I think a lot of people don't understand, like, if you get a food sensitivity test, that data in a way can have an expiration date. And if,
Sure.
especially if you're making changes. Now, if you get a food sensitivity test and you don't do anything with it and you continue to eat the same way you have been, there's a high likelihood that those sensitivities might stay the same. But
Right.
in many cases, I tell patients, well, if you did it, whether you followed it or not, and if you're having any kind of those symptoms, gut issues, skin issues, brain fog, fatigue, if you're not feeling your best every day, or if you're having a more severe symptom, it's probably a good chance, good time to take a look at your immune system and what it's reacting to.
Especially when people come in and and I hear, people, I'm so inflamed. My inflammation is so bad. And, when you think about how long it takes somebody to actually take the step to come in and say, this is an issue. I went to my doctor. I've done this. I've, done all these things, when it's something so simple, and then they're just so really like, oh my gosh, I would have never thought about that. They're looking for something else. Is there an IV that's going to help with this? Is there a vitamin? Is there something? What is going on? And they're not even necessarily thinking of a food sensitivity test at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's opened my eyes so many times.
Yes.
I like to test myself at least once a year, and there's been times. I remember one time I reacted to cocoa, which is like the cocoa bean, what is used in chocolate,
Hmm.
and I was like, that's weird because I traditionally haven't had a sweet tooth in my life, and I don't indulge in chocolates or sweets, but I was putting cocoa butter on my skin. Would have never connected
Oh, wow.
would have never connected that. So
Wow.
for lotions, for moisturizers, cocoa butter is great.
Yeah.
Would have never connected that. Coconut, same thing. Like if you're cooking with coconut oil or if you're using a dairy-free coconut creamer, so
Hmm.
it's really important. It's a great opportunity. It gives the patients a chance to like, let's take inventory of everything you're doing and let's start reading labels. And especially if they're having a severe symptom where it's more important to identify that one culprit. But
Sure.
many times, just addressing your gut health by doing the test, following the results as best as you can, listening to the recommendations from the healthcare providers like you guys have at New Leaf Wellness can
Hmm.
really go a long way into having patients truly feel their best, where they're like happy and excited to, every day live
Yeah.
life. I mean, that's how we should be feeling, I
And
think.
I have one more question because every time I look at it, I think to myself, okay, so the major offenders. So explain that to me.
So
Major
yeah,
offenders.
so we test for a few things that are not necessarily like foods, and it's hard for us to put them in different categories. So your brewer's yeast, baker's yeast, Candida albicans, which is a yeast, gluten, whey, casein, and cane sugar. Those are our major offenders. We put them in a separate box because it's a little bit hard to classify them as like fruits or vegetables or anything
Sure.
else. And they're major offenders in that we want patients to take a look at that box specifically because, your brewer's yeast, that's used in anything in the fermentation process, anything at
Oh,
all.
wow. Okay.
So even vinegar,
I didn't even know that.
even vinegar, a lot of people do apple cider vinegar. Well,
Right.
if you're reacting to brewer's yeast, apple cider vinegar or any vinegar is probably not going to be the best thing to put in your gut. Most of the time, if it's like triple, quadruple distilled, it'll get rid of most of the traces amounts of the yeast, but you never really know. And I wouldn't put my health to trust in those manufacturers'
Sure.
labels.
Yeah.
I'm going to eliminate that altogether to try to reduce that risk. Baker's yeast would be in your baked goods. Candida albicans is a yeast that lives in all of our guts. We do need Candida. But when it gets out of control, it can become a problem. It can even hijack the nervous system. It can do so much damage when it gets out of control. So we test for Candida. It's not saying that you have an overgrowth of Candida, but it is saying your immune system is reacting to it. That
Sure.
sometimes is an indication that it may have gotten out of hand and left the gastrointestinal tract where most of it should be. So we have a protocol in conjunction with your providers. We can give the protocol to the patients to say this is how to reduce your Candida. Goes a long way with skin issues and the gut issues as well, addressing Candida. Your casein and your whey are proteins in dairy and cow's milk
Mhm.
products. So your cheeses, if anybody's for the casein, if anybody's doing whey proteins, there's a lot of patients that we get that are very health conscious, very
Right.
much into the fit lifestyle, the athletic lifestyle. If you're having a severe reaction to whey and you're having a whey protein, either at
Oh
your
yeah.
either pre or post workout as a shake, you might want to find an alternative to that protein, and we can help with that as well. We can give suggestions. So, casein and whey would be the dairy. Cane sugar is one that we don't see a lot of people react to. The molecule is really small, but if you do react to it, we know for sure you're indulging too much in your sweets. You
Sure.
probably, tailor that down a little bit. Um, and gluten, obviously, being one of the proteins in wheat, barley, malt, rye, all your grains that are gluten containing grains are
And
going to,
that's the one we hear about all the time. I feel like gluten allergies are so prevalent. Like people, I can't eat gluten, I can't eat gluten, but there's so many other things that could be in line with that in the same way and affecting them in the same way. They just don't know what it is.
sure.
It's just everybody's looking for gluten.
Well, I mean, if you think about if we talk about gluten, it can cause autoimmunity. Somebody who has the genes for celiac disease, if you expose them to enough gluten in their lives, they can go into autoimmunity. That's really not
Really?
good. That's when the system is attacking itself. That's what celiac disease is. It's an autoimmune
Oh,
disease, and it's your body attacking itself because you've given it so much gluten throughout your whole life. I love the topic of gluten. The gluten proteins, the molecules are fascinating because
sure.
it is a hybridized version of what is found in nature, and humans are mostly responsible for that hybridized molecule. There are parts of the protein chain in gluten that no human can digest, no human can break down. It's just a matter of, is it going to cause an issue for you or not? Is it going to pass through with no issues? Or is it
Right.
going to pass through, wreak havoc, activate your immune system, and then enough of that, if your body's going through that process enough long enough, you can go into autoimmunity. And
Oh my gosh, that's so, who would know that? That's just, it's
yeah,
so important to be mindful of all this. It really
yeah.
is for
And
your whole body health.
these days, I think it's so much easier to go gluten free. First of all, because of the alternatives, not to say that they're all better, but there's just so many different options for there, just like dairy free. If
Yep,
this was
right.
10,
That's
20
right.
years ago, the alternatives for gluten, the alternatives for dairy were definitely slim, and most
Right.
of those products didn't even taste good. We have come a long way in that sense. So there is alternatives for patients as well. Uh,
Right.
so yeah, I mean, it's really important. I think it's immensely important for patients to take a look at their gut health, take a look at how they're feeling, their symptoms, think about how long you've been having them, and, start maybe thinking about how the foods are playing a role in that. And the food sensitivity test that you guys do at New Leaf Wellness, the Biotrinetics food sensitivity test, along with the complete health assessment you guys do with the providers that you have, I mean, it speaks volumes to the success that you guys are having with patients.
Well, we think a lot of you too, Rodrigo, over there. We sing your praises a lot here. We think it's great what you're doing for people. I do. I love it.
Thank
I'll do
you.
this all day. I love giving people information and letting you inform them like that because you're just good at what you do
No, I
and you really
appreciate that.
care. I tell people that all the time. Like they actually care. I promise. I would not tell you that. They
We
really, really do.
we
And
do, we
that
do.
feels good.
And I honestly, I mean, thanks to you as well. You're on the front line with patients, so you get to hear the questions of, kind of some of the misconceptions. You also get to hear the benefits that patients are having, like that patient that came
Oh,
back in
yeah.
that looked like a completely different person. I mean, it is immensely important. That's why I really appreciate and thank you for taking the time to share what you're seeing, what you're hearing, the experiences that the clinic is having with the patients, the experience that the patients are having as well with the treatment protocols. So if anything, we owe it to you guys, and thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Oh gosh, we love being a team with you. So we're really happy to help people with you. Very great.
Awesome. Awesome. Anything else that you
I
want to?
mean, we've covered a lot. You just answered all the things. Yes, it was fantastic. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Hopefully we can do this again soon,
Oh,
put
we will. We
more
will.
information out there for patients. Any questions you guys have, any questions patients have, don't hesitate to give Biotrinetics a call.
We won't.
Thanks so much,
All
Jennifer.
right. Thank you.